I would like to request Syed Shabih Ali Muhib to come and discuss about economy of tomorrow.
And also I'd like to thank the organizers for giving me this podium to speak with you about the economy of tomorrow. And essentially what I'll say in the next 10 minutes is very much about what we feel and what our research says once we know the way the economy is going. So those will be the themes that I'll be talking about over the next 10 minutes. So let me start very quickly with what are the mega trends which are defining the today and which are going to define the tomorrow. We all talked about digital transformation. This is part of digitization of everything. Everything we have is being digitized. And the other thing is there's a collapse of space and time. There used to be a place, there used to be a time, now everything happens at the same place, at the same time, no matter where you are. Virtual reality, brother talked about, is happening. And then there's no globalization agenda. So when you look at economy, how we used to look at it was very much related to agriculture, manufacturing and services. Now we're looking at servicization of the economy, where manufacturing and services are coming together, and agriculture is being dominated by a lot of mechanization. The moment you start the engine, you start paying for the service. So there is a blend there. There's a demographic shift, and the demographic shift is essentially relating to an aging West. So I joined the World Bank about 20 years ago, and my first project was to look at demographic trends in Europe. Everybody but Turkey is depopulating. So there'll be an aging West and a growing East. And the other thing we find is a concentration of wealth and the rise of inequality. So it used to be very much East and West. Now it's the rich and the poor, and they all live in the same kind of neighborhood. We use whatever services that there are. And I invite you to East Asia, which is actually the most dynamic at the moment of regions. And a lot of work is going on in there. And finally, we've all seen climate change. It's here and now, droughts, fires, floods, sea level rises, etc. That's going to be also defining on how we live. There's urbanization and smart cities. People are getting vertical, people are moving into the center, and non-urban populations are increasing and depopulation in rural areas. Very quickly, we talked about megatech. This is artificial intelligence combined with machine learning, which have got connected things. And there are two things happening. The first thing is quantum computing. And quantum computing is actually going to, if you look at your current iPhone, quantum computing will be able to do 50,000 iPhones at the same time, so it can actually do a lot immediately. The issue is it overheats. And here you have multiple parts of the world are getting into, you've got wars and you've got all kind of like blocks which are forming. Some of these blocks are the Quad, the Shanghai Cooperation event. So the world is very much getting into blocks and geonomics, where everybody wants to do globalization, but do it in their own place, which I would call localization. Is localizing globalization. It's not easy. So we see tensions coming in. At the end of it, what will happen is risk premiums will go up and uncertainties will go up. Now, when you look at all of that, what are the jobs that will not be there anymore? AI, machine learning, cyber security, because as you got all of these connected devices, you also have people trying to crack the code. I don't know how many of you have been scammed and all of that, because there are a lot of dark side to these. Then what will be there is all skills that require empathy. Now there are lots of scientists who are claiming that AI will take over the world. I don't believe it, because what they talked about is the concept of singularity. where machine learning becomes regenerative in happening, but there is that. Now what will be less jobs? So less jobs will be typical assembly line staff, medical diagnostics and interventional care will be mechanized, legal advice will be very much mechanized. You can already go to ChatGPT. How many people have used ChatGPT in this room? There you go. All of us are using almost AI for things. So legal stuff, bus drivers, conductors, etc. Trains are also getting much more connected. Interpreters, retailers, especially logistics. So those will be and we have a book. The presentation has actually got links. It's all about reskilling and upskilling. And here the basic focus on primary education is necessary, because every single thing you build up is built on that base. So make sure that primary education is good, and one invests in what we call science, technology, engineering, economics and mathematics. So STEAM skills are hugely important, because you can problem solve, you can also be on top of the curve. And essentially in this space, making sure we are apprenticeships, we got vocational training, etc. are important. And I'll get to it why I'm saying it, because I'm just coming to it. And finally what we see is a lot of organizations are developing leaders. How many of you have done leadership training? How many of you have done followership training? Right, so if we're creating leaders and no followers, then we're in a problem. So what we have is, we have life skills, where I would call L for listening. We don't listen a lot in the world, you know. So listening is one. We have great ideas, and a lot of very nice ideas were talked about. The question is, how many of those do we implement? Can we take one and implement them? That's where there's a skills shortage. There's a lot of talkers and not a lot of doers. Following. Well, in every team you have leader, you decide, and then you follow. And that's important. And finally, E for evaluating. We need to evaluate what we do. We need to evaluate ourselves out of every experience we have, and then think through what to do. So finally, I'll end with some suggestions. But for suggestions, I always start with, what do I suggest to myself before I can suggest anything to you. First of all, currently the whole world is in a crisis of governance. What we see is governance which has failed in multiple areas. So for me, what I do is I like to go back to Imam Ali's letter to Malik-e-Ashtar. It has everything you need in essentially the whole governance ideology. Implementation is the key. Following is the key. Listening is the key. Now, I'd like to ask you, if Imam Ali alayhi salam sent you a WhatsApp message and said, please come to the Shohada street, how many of us would turn up? But he's already written so much. You know, if you go and ask him something, he might say, have you read X, Y, and Z that I've already said? So if we read, we already know what he would say. So I say to myself, we should read that letter and implement it in our daily lives. I'll end with that. Happy to have any discussions, and whatever I have said, there are research behind it. Please do share the presentation, and I'm also happy to provide more answers. I'd like to stop here and just request you for a salawat.